Daljit Nagra, the son of first-generation Indian parents, was born in 1966 and grew up in London. In 1982, his family moved to Sheffield, where his father bought a corner shop in an area which was predominantly white working class, where he and his family experienced racist attacks and frequent burglaries. Much of his poetry focuses on the lives of immigrants and their children. Singh Song was published in Nagra's first award-winning collection, Look, We Have Coming to Dover, in 2007. Nagra himself has said that the British generally stereotype Indians as being either shopkeepers, doctors, or lawyers. As the son of a shopkeeper, he decided in this poem, rather than to avoid the stereotype, to embrace it instead, and celebrate it in an affectionate portrait of a fictional Mr. Singh, who puts his love for his new wife above the smooth running of his shop. He's also said that too much love poetry is sad, in that it often deals with the end of relationships, and that he wanted to write a happy love poem instead. In this poem, he celebrates love as well as exploring the themes of culture and conflict. Not only is conflict between first and second generation immigrants depicted, but stereotypes that non-Indians may have about Indian culture are also challenged, and the racial abuse that the poet, as an Asian man growing up in a majority white country, has experienced is also hinted at. The poem is a dramatic monologue and is best appreciated when read aloud. Dramatic monologues have a speaker who is distinct from the poet. This character, a young Indian shopkeeper called Mr. Singh, unwittingly reveals more about his character and his life than he tells us directly. It is written in the first person and the present tense, indicating that the speaker is telling us about his life in general rather than about one incident in particular. It is written in free verse, so line and stanza lengths are irregular, and there is no formal rhyme scheme. The poet makes some use of end rhyme, and there is extensive assonance and consonance. The poem, in keeping with its title Sing Song, has the structural features such as verse, chorus and bridge of a song. There's also a fair amount of anaphora, or repetition of a word or phrase at the beginning of subsequent clauses, and enjambment throughout. There are no full stops, and the poet signals the end of a number of stanzas with a dash, which is reminiscent of song structure, in that it indicates there is more to come. The poem is written in the vernacular. It reflects the language and dialect spoken by the English-speaking Indian community and has been described as Punglish, which is a mixture of Punjabi and English, although Nagra himself has described the term as ugly. He has asserted that he has done this in no way to poke fun at his character, but rather to celebrate what he sees as just another type of English, the pronunciation and grammar of which he relishes the idea of non-Indians having to get to grips with. Most W's have a V sound, such as V rather than we, and words with voiced th sounds have a D, such as dis rather than this. The poet also uses non-standard English grammar to evoke the voices of his community, e.g., this dirty little floor needs a little bit of mop, rather than the standard English rendition, which would be, this dirty little floor needs a little bit of a mop. The title Sing Song is a pun. It's a play on the compound noun sing-song, which is an English word for an informal get-together for singing and suggests a celebratory tone. It's also a song by a man called Mr. Singh. All male Sikhs have Singh, which means lion in Sanskrit, as part of their name. The title is a good example of the way in which Daljit Nagra has said that his poetry is about the attempt to marry two different cultures and two different languages. The poem is told from the perspective of a young male Indian shopkeeper called Mr. Singh, who is in the family business. He's not in a position of great responsibility as he runs just one of his daddy's shops. His father is obviously a successful businessman and has a chain of these corner shops, the day-to-day running of which he delegates to members of his family. We get the impression that he is still very young and or immature, as he refers to him as daddy rather than dad or father. He works long hours from 9 o'clock to 9 o'clock and is expected to not have a break. Note the assonants and consonants at the ends of the lines in the first stanza to give it cohesion and musicality. The speaker confesses at the end of the first stanza that when there are not customers, he do de lock, or shuts up shop so that no one can come in. There's almost a sense of glee in the way in which he says this, and you can imagine him giving his listeners a wink. When Nagra performs this poem, he often makes a clicking sound with his tongue to imitate the sound of the lock. Mr. Singh is misbehaving, and he knows it. The reason for this disobedience is made apparent at the beginning of the next stanza. He wants to spend time with his newly bride, who is up the stairs in the flat above the shop. He's not been married long, and he wants to have sex and then eat chapatis with chutney. Note the short lines that have 6 syllables each, which pull the rhythm up, each with the rhythmic anaphora visherin, the harmony of which communicates his pleasure in this activity. The change in rhythm is perhaps also an indication of the welcome change in what he feels is the monotonous rhythm of his working day. The poet uses a humorous simile that has a double rhyme with chutney, like the rowing through Putney, the back and forwards motion evoking the exuberance of his and his wife's lovemaking. Putney is an area of southwest London through which the Thames flows, with the verb rowing thus alluding to the quintessentially English Oxford-Cambridge boat race. The juxtaposition of these images, one vulgar, the other genteel, creates humour. There is also almost a sense of childish glee in his description, as he uses further sexual innuendo, which would only be picked up by people with a knowledge of Punjabi. Putney is very similar in sound to the Punjabi word for wife, patni, which makes the simile even more vulgar. Note the alliteration of chapati and chutney, and the assonance of the short sounds in chutney, love, and Putney, which adds to the stanza's musicality. This next stanza could be seen as a bridge in the poem, with its different rhythm, the structure of which is repeated in stanza 8. It is signalled by the phrases, "Ven I return," and "De shoppers always point and cry, Hey Singh, where you been?" After he spent some time upstairs with his wife, he returns to the shop with his pinny or apron untied. Note the assonance here in the long I sounds. He looks sloppy and does not seem to care that his customers know what he's been up to. The poet brings direct speech, indicated by the italic font, into this stanza, as the customers bombard the speaker with rhetorical questions about his absence. "Hey Singh, where you been?" and abuse about the state of his shop. Their disrespect for him is obvious, as they do not address him with the title Mr. Who are these customers? Their words are reported in Punglish. Is this just the shopkeeper's way of reporting their speech, or are they mimicking his accent and grammar? The meaning behind his words is also ambiguous. Is there confusion and disorganisation as the lemons are limes and the bananas are plantain? Or is this just ignorance on the part of the shoppers, who are unfamiliar with the produce, such as limes and plantains, that is more commonplace in Asian cuisine? His customers also accuse him of having a dirty shop, with its little floor needing a little bit of mop. Is it really dirty? We do know that he's been neglecting his duties of late, but does it also reveal the prejudice to which he is exposed on a daily basis? The sarcastic and patronising tone conveyed in the adjective little would suggest that the words are meant to put him down. The stanza finishes with the customer's complaint that it is the worst Indian shop on the whole Indian road, which is another indication that their complaints are rooted in racism. Why is it necessary to label both the shop and the road as Indian at all? Note the way in which the anapaestic metre of these two lines adds to the sense of it being a refrain. The speaker's mind is clearly not on the job, though, as he is distracted by the sound of his wife's high heel tapping the ground in the flat upstairs. The fact that she's wearing high heels is an indication that she has adopted Western fashions, and the fact that she is tapping them conveys her energy and impatience. She appears to be involved with some kind of online seek dating site as she plays with the mouse when she netting two cat. Here the poet plays with words. The mouse is simultaneously the literal computer mouse, which she is using to navigate around the website, as well as a metaphorical mouse, which she is using as bait to capture or net the cats or prospective partners for a date. Note the consonants of the t sounds in these lines, which capture the sound not only of her heels tapping, but also the clicking of the mouse and the tapping of the computer keyboard. The next three stanzas, starting with the anaphoric "my bride," which communicates his pride, effectively creates a chorus, as the poet builds up a picture of a larger-than-life, unconventional and assertive young lady who is not afraid to challenge the traditional ways of doing things. She has no respect for her elders and is not afraid to F or swear at her mother-in-law in all the colours of Punjabi, at the same time as making fun of her father-in-law as she stumbles like a drunk, to perhaps insinuate that he has a drinking problem. The speaker, however, is clearly captivated by his new wife. She seems simultaneously terrifying and irresistible to him. He describes her as having tiny eyes of a gun, suggesting that she has a tough nature with a look that can kill, but also having a tummy of a teddy, suggesting that she has a rounded, soft belly, which communicates his delight in her physical form. The speaker's choice of word, tummy rather than stomach, and image, i.e. a child's toy, once more is indicative of his immaturity, enhanced by the alliteration of the two words, and the way in which they echo other such childish words as daddy, pinny, and sweeties. It could also suggest that his infatuation with his wife has made him go all gooey and sentimental. She has a striking physical appearance. She has a red crew cut, a very short, spiky haircut that is dyed red. Her sari is tartan, and she wears a donkey jacket, which is a Western working man's jacket. She embodies the way second-generation immigrants fuse aspects of both cultures. She cuts a somewhat intimidating figure as she confronts the girls who come into the shop that are pinching my sweeties. There is a sense that the speaker is really out of his depth, juggling the running of his shop, which is possibly neglecting, while being distracted by the unconventional behaviour and physical charms of his wife. There's no sense that he has much control over any part of his life. He's even unable to keep a handle on the shoplifting perpetrated by children that is going on right under his nose. Stanza 8 is another bridge section, introduced once more by "When I Return," and "De shoppers always point and cry, 'Hey Singh, where you been?'" This time he uses a euphemism to allude to the fact that he's been upstairs having sex with his wife, and once more his childish excitement and sense of fun is conveyed by his use of the word tickle. The stanza also contains more abuse from the customers, as he is accused of having milk which is out of date and bread which is always stale. They also complain that the goods he has on offer are never in stock. How justified these complaints are, we cannot tell. The stanza once more finishes on the refrain, and the worst Indian shop in the whole Indian road. The repetition of this theme indicates that this abuse is something which he experiences on a daily basis. The final stanzas exhibit a shift in tone, and the mood becomes much more romantic. After the shop is shut in the midnight hour, and there are no distractions because you shoppers are wrapped up quiet or have gone home, so that they're not giving him any grief, the pair come down whispering stairs. The personification in this image and the sibilance in these lines conveys a secrecy and intimacy that the couple enjoy as they sit on my silver stool. Implicitly, she is sitting on his lap, and the way in which the chrome stool is described as silver is suggestive of the romance that the couple feel they enjoy, even if they're just sitting behind a display of chocolate bars. They stare past the mundane clutter of the shop, embodied in the half-price window signs at the beaches of the UK in the brighty moon. The image, the beaches of the UK, is not to be taken literally. It is most likely to be a metaphor for the borders of the country, such as are found at Dover, reflected in the title of the poetry collection, and alludes to the way in which they feel that, although they may have physically crossed the border into the country, there still remains a barrier to their acceptance, and they are treated as inferior foreigners. The way in which the speaker says brighty instead of bright might be an allusion to the word blighty, which is a corruption of a Hindi word meaning foreign, and has come to be used as a nickname for England. What is perhaps being conveyed is that, even though the couple experience conflict on a day-to-day basis, in terms of intergenerational conflict and racism, their love overrides everything, and they symbolically, at night when it's just the two of them, take ownership of the moon, even though it is in an English sky. This private time at the end of the day belongs to them and them alone, upon which the troubles of their day-to-day life do not impinge. The poem ends on 4 short stanzas, constituting a kind of chorus, as the poet makes use of anaphora. From de stool each night she say, and from de stool each night I say, and ends of lines that match perfectly, rather than having any rhyme, to communicate the loving and teasing sweet nothings that go back and forth between the pair as they reaffirm their love. She asks him how much he charges for the moon, to which he replies that she is worth twice as much. She asks him how much the total is, to which he replies that that is priceless. Once more, the poet uses an italic font to distinguish the direct speech from the narrative. The use of commas rather than full stops conveys the natural and easy to and fro of the conversation, and indicates the well-rehearsed, although in no way insincere, nature of the exchange that happens each night. The way in which they use the term of endearment baby to address one another communicates the love that they have for one another. This poem is a celebration of love, even in the face of adversity. Thanks for watching. If you have any questions, please let me know in the comments section below, and I'll do my best to answer them. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel for more videos on English language topics and exam techniques, and English literature texts.